Hey everybody, I'm Kendall.
And I'm Mika.
And we're Gearheads at Backcountry.
Welcome to our Gearhead Field Test for the Merrell Moab Speed 2 GORE-TEX Collection.
We just got back from a week-long backpacking trip in the Patagonian backcountry where we really put these shoes to the test.
Absolutely. So today we're going to go over the different models, features, and of course, durability of the shoes.
Check out our Gearhead Adventure short film over here if you want to learn more about Torres del Paine.
And if you want to hop around the video, there'll be timestamps below.
Let's get into it.
All right, Kendall, can you break down the Speed 2 collection for me?
Totally. So the Moab Speed 2 collection is what they claim to be the future of hiking footwear. They have a lot of lightweight options with different pricing, different heights, and different waterproof as well.
Oh, cool. So does the Moab collection span more than that or just that?
So they have options for men, women, and children within the Moab line. Yep. So I had the Moab Speed 2 GORE-TEX shoe, which I think is actually more of a boot. This one takes inspiration from the classic Moab boot, which you'll see everywhere. It has that classic brown leather. They're super popular, especially here in Utah. But this one is just kind of re-engineered for speed.
For speed.
Yeah.
Just moving and grooving. Well, mine was even more for speed. I was wearing the Merrell Moab Speed 2 shoe, hiking shoe. However, this thing kind of blends the line between a trail runner and a hiking shoe because it is seriously light.
And yours is the GORE-TEX version as well, right?
Absolutely. And I was running in it a little bit.
Getting into our first topic here, the first thing that you may notice about this shoe that you wore is that it's $30 more expensive than the regular Moab Speed 2. And why's that?
Well, it's all about the GORE-TEX. It's about the waterproofing and the breathability at the same time. So I'm very glad that I took a GORE-TEX shoe to Patagonia because it was muddy, as you might be able to tell from the changing color on both of our shoes. And that was really something that lent itself well there. You know, it was waterproof, but it was still breathable. And that's something that the Moab Speed 2, the base shoe that is $30 cheaper, doesn't come with. Usually, I don't hike in GORE-TEX. I like that the shoe can get water in it and quickly dry. But in this scenario where we were doing, you know, over 80 miles, it was important to me to have a shoe that was durable. And the GORE-TEX also offered that, along with being waterproof.
Yeah.
I never felt like these shoes were hard for my feet to breathe in. Like I didn't feel like my feet were sweaty or that it took like, I got like a hot spot. I actually was one of the few people on the trip that did not get a single blister. I would like to shout out my toe socks in this moment. Toe socks, thank you for existing. I love you. Everyone makes fun of me, but we're in this together. Okay, now back to the shoe.
I'm glad you brought up socks because I think it's worth mentioning in the breathability section. I think for the kind of shoulder season weather that we dealt with, I'm really glad that I went with like a merino sock with a little bit of padding. Yeah. It wasn't hot enough where I feel like I needed the ultra breathable, like lightweight compression sock.
Yeah.
But I wanted to ask you how you would feel about wearing this shoe on like a 90-degree day in the Moab desert.
I wouldn't wear a GORE-TEX shoe in the desert. I would absolutely wear the Speed 2s without the GORE-TEX.
Okay, Mika, I want to ask about the materials on your shoe as well. Were there any environmentally friendly callouts on this one?
Absolutely. Every shoe nowadays is attempting to be more environmental friendly, I feel like, and this one is no exception. The laces, the upper mesh lining, the webbing, all 100% recycled materials, as well as other parts of the shoe being up to 50% recycled. And I appreciate that. You know, we now more than ever need to protect our outdoor spaces, and part of that is making sure that the materials that we use are sustainable and we're recreating from waste. So I really appreciate that.
Shout out to Merrell for using recycled materials in most of the Moab Speed line too, not just your shoe. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, sorry. My shoe's better than yours, but that's fine.
And then what about sizing? Were you able to just hop into your normal street shoe size?
So I'm usually between like sizes, and so I did size up slightly, but not extremely. I didn't do like a full size jump. I just went on the higher side of what I usually go for, and it ended up being fine, though they do recommend sizing up on these. Did you size up?
I did end up sizing up. So I'm a solid 11.5 street shoe almost every time. And these are 12s. I tried the 11.5s on, and I just worried that I would get some like kind of big toe pain on those long descents, which there were plenty of. And I'm glad that I sized up. Yeah, I think I needed the room.
That was one thing that, you know, I wondered about. How was the width on your shoe?
The width, I think, was a little bit roomy for me. I do have a narrower foot, so like I think it's kind of to be expected. But yeah, I felt like kind of at the widest part of my foot, I had a little bit of extra room, as well as kind of directly above that. I do have a big instep, so I was grateful that the fit is a little bit more spacious. But in order to get kind of that last area to fit properly, I really had to yank on the laces.
Yeah, same here. I do have a more narrow foot, but I think something that I'd love to see from Merrell is like a narrow option. And that's not something that we had for this particular shoe. I do think they've offered it in other models, but maybe that's something for me to keep in mind next time I'm getting one.
Yeah, it wasn't a huge deal, but I definitely really had to torque on the laces, and there were a couple times where I'd get one shoe tight enough, but not the other one, and so then I'm like untying and retying.
Nope.
But I did size up on the shoe, so maybe that was like my choice.
Right. All right, Kendall, first impressions of the weight of the shoe.
Yeah, I was really impressed. Picking them up out of the box, they're super light. They're much lighter than your kind of standard leather hiking boot. That being said, I mean, it's not a crazy high coverage, but still, yeah, I was really impressed. They have a very lightweight feel.
So more nimble than like a heavy tank type.
They're barely in boot territory when you're walking on the trail. Like, you don't think about the fact that you're wearing a boot until you have to like cross the stream and you're like, oh, these actually come up pretty high and I can step in a little bit deeper water. So that's really nice. All right, let's see what these things actually weigh in at. All right, it settled in at 12.75 ounces. All right, according to the scale, we're 16.85 ounces, so just a hair over a pound on a size 12 boot. Pretty good.
Crushed it. Do you feel like your shoes over time kind of shrink them down, or do you feel like they're still well structured and working well?
I'm glad you asked me this, because that was a big concern of mine when I like first grabbed them out of the box and put them on.
Yeah.
They kind of feel soft, and you're like, if these start feeling softer after 10 miles, you know, I might be really hurting at 50 miles.
Right.
But they really stayed that level of stiffness that they were, which, like, again, I think is that perfect happy medium for backpacking, where it's like really light and just stiff enough.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I was very concerned, and after the first day, I was like, I have nothing to worry about. So Kendall, what for you stood out most in terms of build quality of the shoe?
Yeah, I think the execution of stiffness versus breathability in the upper of the shoe is what really impressed me. It hits a really good balance that's kind of perfect for backpacking. You get just enough support, but it's super lightweight and breathable, especially for long miles. Like, I want all the benefits of a boot with all the pros of a regular hiking shoe. You know what I mean? Like, it's in between.
Fully support. Yeah, you get the best of both worlds.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Hannah Montana would be proud. All right. So the question I, you know the song where she like turns around?
I know the song, yeah.
Hey, put that clip in here, all right? Anyway, so I know you said durability is very important to you, but for me, it's all about support. I want to make sure that my shoe is reliable to me in caressing my foot on the trail. So tell me, Kendall, how was yours, especially ankle support? Tell me about this mid boot.
Yeah, height-wise, I mean, I think I've mentioned that these are kind of on the low side for a boot. I definitely feel like the general ankle support is on the lightweight side, but for backpacking, that's kind of what you want. So yeah, midsole support, also pretty solid. I just have like a freakishly high arch, so I did end up putting in my own insole for the backpacking portion of the trip, but I did wear the stock insole around town a little bit. And it's like, I think for most people, it would be totally sufficient arch support. Like I said, I just have a freakishly high arch. So yeah, once I got that aftermarket insole in there, no issues with arch support. The midsole, like I mentioned, is super chunky feeling, which I think helps in multiple ways, not just for foot fatigue, which I think is great with this shoe. I mean, you know, when you're hiking 10 miles a day for a week, your feet are going to be tired at camp. But every morning, like after a good night's sleep, I felt like I got back into my shoe and I was like, oh, I kind of like it here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like no animosity.
I wasn't mad at the shoe in the morning.
Yeah.
So what was the standout feature that you appreciated when you were on the trail?
I think it's a really good execution of a lightweight hiking boot. It has what you need, it doesn't have what you don't need. And I think overall that's what stood out to me. It just seems like it's really well thought through and it does not leave much to be desired.
So do you feel like these lent well to the long, tedious hike of Patagonia, or could they also work in a situation where you're fast packing something or you're cruising casually on a day hike?
Yeah, I think they're definitely pretty versatile. I have worn these on a handful of day hikes, and I really don't feel like they slow me down. I mean, if it was a day hike where I was maybe considering like running down a descent, I probably would not opt for these. I would opt for something with a little bit more mobility, I think a little bit more natural running stride. But yeah, if you're not looking to do any running, I definitely think they're a solid option for day hiking. As far as fast packing, that's not really my cup of tea. I'm more of like a one-pace kind of guy. So yeah, I don't have a lot of experience in that fast packing realm, but my gut reaction would be that those people usually use trail runners and they might not want a boot.
Yes, sir.
Did your shoe feel more like a trail runner inspired or hiking shoe inspired shoe?
Definitely trail runner inspired. I feel like there's a huge wave right now of people switching to trail runners for hiking, especially if you're not a boot person. But I think Merrell was able to incorporate like what a hiking shoe actually is into that trail runner trend. It's definitely gives you the feel of like you can run in it, you can fast pack in it, you can move and groove in it, but it still has a structure. But like, if I'm doing a day hike and then like running down because I want to look cool with all the people who do run up and down, definitely wearing these. I think that Merrell made a classic shoe. It's iconic. Everybody knows what the Moab looks like. And being able to like have that in a more like stylized, cute hiking shoe, I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's pretty sleek looking. Doesn't have the classic like dorky dad hiking shoe look.
Yeah, which I kind of like. I mean, it's got a little bit of that because it's the Moab. You know, the Moab, it's a classic. You know, my dad wore Moab hiking shoes, right? But hey, he also hiked a ton. And here I am hiking a ton. So
yeah,
iconic is iconic for a reason.
And the new Moab Speed.
Yeah, well, obviously I'm faster. So, duh.
All right, moving on to debatably our most important section of a field test. How's the shoe holding up? Is it showing signs of wear?
So we hiked 85 miles, plus the mileage I got in the airport, obviously. These things are definitely showing wear. I mean, the color gets a good blend with the mud. I don't think that they look extremely dirty. But wear and tear wise, I've definitely used these bad boys. Yeah. For sure.
Mine look pretty good. I mean, there's definitely some signs of dirt, but I'd say like that's really all that I'm noticing. I think the toe bump feature is a nice one. I definitely drag my toes and walk into things because I'm clumsy, and I really like that it has that there. And then I think just the chunkiness factor of this midsole here is nice too.
Absolutely.
Just to get the upper of the shoe a little bit further from the dirt and the rocks on the ground.
Yeah.
So I think those things helped.
Yeah. All right, Kendall. Merrell hands you the keys to their design room. What are you changing?
You know, I'm not a shoe designer, so take this with a grain of salt. But I would like to improve the lacing system. I need it to be easier for me to get the shoes super tight. And I think a good way to do that, it would be to have 2 eyelets in this space so that I can get an extra crisscross in there.
Ooh, okay.
And yeah, hopefully cinch things down a little bit more easily. I think everything else is actually really great with this shoe.
The Moab line is continuously evolving, right? Merrell is constantly trying to bring the best footwear on the market for hiking, for these day hike vibes, for also like long-term hiking, for everything. They've got everything, and they're constantly listening and hearing what the people want, and they're continuing to evolve, which I appreciate. And I think that's one reason why it's important to say, you know, what the next steps are.
Yeah, true innovators over at Merrell for sure.
Absolutely.
And it makes me think of questions, you know, it's like, where is rubber technology gonna go down the line? Like, is there a way that we can have this lightweight with even more grip from the outsole maybe? Like that, you know, that makes me wonder. Heel slip was a factor for you just with like needing to tighten everything up to prevent that. And it's like, you know, maybe they'll think of a solution for that too.
Right. Yeah, I mean, there's always gonna be something in some degree that can get improved. And I'm excited to see what's next.
Me too. Thank you guys so much for watching. That's a wrap on our Gearhead Field Test video for the Merrell Moab Speed 2 GORE-TEX Collection. Let us know in the comments if you prefer hiking shoes or boots.
And since this is my first rodeo and I'm so excited to say it, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe.
If you guys have any questions about these shoes or anything else on the website, be sure to reach out to a Gearhead.
We'll see you out there.